Hi everyone, it's James here. Thanks for tuning in, thanks for joining me. Hopefully nice quick video this morning. Theme that I have thought of, and it was inspired the other evening when I was listening to this Kevin Ayers twofer, Joy of a Toy and Shooting at the Moon. Now I think it was at the end of Shooting at the Moon, Mike Oldfield turned up on guitar. I knew he was on the album. He's on Shooting at the Moon, but I wasn't quite sure where he was going to sit on the record, and I think he came in right at the end, and as soon as I heard him come in, I instantly recognised him. It was like one note, he just played one note on the guitar, and I just instantly went, oh, there's Mike Oldfield. And you know, because I know his music so well from back in the day, from listening to Tubular Bells 10 trillion times when I was, 14. But the thing is, he has got a really distinctive guitar sound, and that got me thinking, I wonder if you could do a video on musicians who have a signature sound which is so identifiable that you only need to hear one note or maybe a couple of notes or a bar, and you instantly know it's them. And I think what's interesting about this topic is that different people will have different suggestions. It all depends on how well you know a particular musician. You know, I was thinking about Ry Cooder, and thinking, would I be able to identify Ry Cooder just by one note or just by a couple of notes? And not convinced I would be, even though he's an absolutely incredible slide player. There are other wonderful slide players, and I don't feel like I'm enough of an expert. If you played me two sections of music, one by Ry Cooder and one by an equally accomplished musician, would I know which one was Ry Cooder? I'm not sure I would. Other people might well do. So I thought I'd come up with my own personal list of musicians whose sound is so, to me anyway, so totally identifiable that you just can't miss it. So Mike Oldfield is the first one. Most of these are going to be guitarists, and to be fair, I think often with guitarists, one of the reasons that they have a signature sound is it's something to do with how they've set up their instrument or how they've set up their rig. You know, it's a combination of the pickups on the guitar, the amplifier settings, effects pedals, any number of things. And Mike Oldfield actually has a kind of range of different sounds. I mean, he's a one-man guitar orchestra in a way, but there is one particular sound he has, which is, it's got a kind of Celtic feel to it, almost like pipes. Not quite sure how he actually managed to do that on the guitar. Really ingenious, but that was a sound that I heard on the Kevin Ayers record. It's a guitar, but it's got a kind of Celtic woodwind kind of flavour to it, and to me it's just instantly identifiable. So the next few are going to be guitarists also. David Gilmour, literally you hear one note, or I hear one note, and I know it's him. A prime example will be at the start of this record, his first note that he plays in Shine On You Crazy Diamond. Just one note hangs in the air and you're thinking, that is David Gilmour. It's either David Gilmour or it's somebody who is totally trying to imitate David Gilmour. I mean, that's one thing that can make it difficult sometimes. You get these musicians who've got such an identifiable sound that people end up copying them, and then you can't then work out if it's the original or if it's somebody just doing a copy. This one sprung to mind as one that was quite good fun, because I did talk about this when I first showed this record a couple of years ago. This is B.B. King and Friends. It's an album that came out in 1974, and there's lots of other guitarists on the record. You've got B.B. King, Daryl Inman, Norman Harris, El Tavarsky and Roland Chambers. It does beg the question, if you've got B.B. King on a guitar record, why on earth do you need these other guitarists? But I guess it's because B.B. King really only does kind of single note solos really, and he sings and then he plays and then he sings and then he plays. So when he's singing he stops playing, so you need to have some guitarists, I guess, But on this record there's lots of guitars and it all sounds quite nice, but you don't notice B.B. King until he plays, and I can't remember which track it is, but the first B.B. King solo that appears on this record, it's kind of just like the sun coming out. You just hear one note and you're like, oh, B.B.'s here now. Just a very sweet sound. It's just the sound of sunshine really. It's very pure, and it's very beautiful and sort of ethereal in a way. B.B.'s not a particularly gutsy player in a sense. It's more lyrical than that, and it's just a wonderful moment on this record when he kind of comes in, and you just feel like giving a round of applause. It's like, hooray, B.B. King's here. Fantastic. This one is fairly predictable, I guess, and I guess this is an example of where somebody has got a very particular setup. Talking about Brian May, obviously, who built his own guitar out of an old fireplace, and he played it with a sixpence rather than a plectrum, and he had a rig. He had his own kind of setup, and I mean, he was famous for the stacked guitars, you know, for orchestrating guitars. That was his great big innovation in a way. However, he only has to play one note and he's instantly recognisable. If you think of his, you know, the first note he plays, the guitar solo in We Will Rock You, even the feedback that comes in before he starts playing is just instantly recognisably him. And I can't think of that many other guitarists who ever sound as just as immediately recognisable as old Brian. And then another guy who's kind of quite similar in a way, not the same guitar sound but also instantly recognisable, is Mark Knopfler. And I don't remember now, when I bought this record, this is Slow Train Coming, I don't think I knew he was on it. I think I spun the record without looking at the liner notes, and as soon as the guitar came on I was like, oh, that's Mark Knopfler. And I'm not even a massive Dire Straits fan. I've got a few of their records, but I wouldn't describe myself as a big Dire Straits fan. But his sound is so, it just leaps out of the speakers and goes, Mark Knopfler is here. And on this record, there's some wonderful guitar playing on Slow Train Coming, and you know, you've got Bob Dylan's voice, you've got Mark Knopfler's guitar. Those are the two main ingredients of this record. So yeah, I don't know what he did, I don't know what he does, don't know what his setup is, don't quite know what it is, but it's this, it's a very kind of clipped, slightly funky sound. It's kind of white funk, and it has it's got a keening quality to it, a melancholy feel, and you know, it made him millions, didn't it? So there's the guitarist. So I'm going to finish with just a few non-guitar players, just to show. The one instrument I couldn't think of one for, really, was the keyboards, interestingly. Couldn't think of a keyboard player. I mean, I did think maybe Keith Emerson. Thought of Rick Wakeman. I wasn't 100% convinced. I mean, Rick Wakeman's got a very florid style, as has Keith Emerson, but, you know, would I recognise them straight away? Not too sure. I thought also maybe of Kate Bush, Elton John, but for some reason I wasn't quite as sure with keyboard players and piano players. To me, they don't seem to be quite as recognisable. I could be wrong. But anyway, so I don't have any keyboard players. Oh, sorry, I've got one more guitarist. Sorry, I should have paid more attention to my own pile of records. Robert Fripp. If you think of the opening guitar chord or noise at the start of David Bowie's Heroes album, you just hear it and you just go, ooh, Robert Fripp's on this record then. You know, I guess that's why he was used so much as a session man. Bowie got him to come down to the sessions for Heroes, and apparently he plugged in, and within about half an hour he'd recorded all his contributions to the record, you know. And I think with Fripp, I think it's largely to do with his rig and how he sets the guitar up, but he's got this very kind of abrasive, dirty sound. It's not dirty as in dirty, funky, black kind of R&B. It's dirty, messed up kind of European art rock kind of guitar sound, and nobody else can quite do what he does on the guitar. It can be very foreboding, you know, it can be quite scary. Yeah, so let's move away from the guitar players. So I've just got a couple of jazz ones. A fairly obvious choice, this one. Miles Davis, instantly recognisable when he starts to play his trumpet. It's got that kind of cracked, lonely quality to it. Nobody else could quite do it, and the fact that he's kind of so sparing with his notes, you can just listen to a couple of bars and you're like, yeah, that's definitely Miles. It's almost like nobody else would have the guts to play like that, just to play so minimally and also so imperfectly. Think of, there's moments on Sketches in Spain where he plays these notes that are so kind of cracked and imperfect, and you just think, God, I can't believe he actually had the guts to play like that. It's almost like playing badly. And you can see why very traditional jazz critics, I'm thinking of people like Philip Larkin, took issue with Miles in a way, because he didn't follow the established patterns of what you might call virtuosic playing. He was not into that. He was not into flurries of notes and that kind of very strident thing. He was more into a very introspective sound with this wonderful sense of imperfection that ran through it. Very spare, very beautiful, very emotional, and instantly recognisable. And by complete contrast, I'd say John Coltrane is equally immediately recognisable, but for a different reason. He's got this very kind of urgent tone to his playing. If you listen to records where, say, it's him and a Wayne Shorter or somebody else, when Coltrane comes in, there's something about the way he attacks the note when he first plays. There's a kind of religious fervour to it. It's just like, I'm here now and I'm going to express everything that I'm going to express. Kind of lays it on, everything's on display. It's not like Miles, who kind of holds back and is very minimal and spare. You get this sense with John Coltrane that he's been waiting for his entrance, and when he comes in, everything that he's got to give is kind of there in the first note. Yeah, fantastic. So, what's left? Bass guitar. I've got one. There must be others. Jacoposturus maybe, I don't know. This is the one that I thought of straight away, and it is Mark King from Level 42. Now, say what you want about Level 42, and they're not the most critically adored band. I'm not a big fan of theirs generally, but I do really love this record. And Mark King has the most incredible bass guitar technique and sound that you'll ever hear in your life. It's percussive, that's the main thing. He plays it like he's playing the drums, but it's also very melodic. He's not just playing one groove, he's playing multiple grooves with his right hand. It's like polyrhythms on the bass guitar. I don't think anybody else quite does it in the way he does it, and he only has to play one bar of it and you know, right, yeah, this is Mark King. Astonishing bass player. And, in a way, he was sort of wasted in Level 42 over the years, because they became so much of a kind of light funk pop group, and I often used to think there was a different band, a sort of parallel universe where Mark King did something which was going to be universally well regarded, and rather than doing something like Weather Report or something, he kind of chose to go down the Level 42 route. Which has resulted in him being treated probably with a slight level of disdain, really, which is not that appropriate given how fantastic he is as a bass player. So, finally, drums. Now, there are quite a few drummers who, to me, are instantly recognisable, but maybe that's because I was a drummer for so many years and I always listen to the drums. I'm going to choose two fairly obvious ones. The first one is John Bonham. And, I mean, literally books have been written about this, trying to get to the bottom of how John Bonham got the sound that he did. It wasn't just him, it was Jimmy Page as well, to be fair. Page was an absolute master engineer, and he knew all about microphone placement. I don't know whose idea it was to put John Bonham in the stairwell at Headley Grange and mic up the stairwell so you were picking up all the overtones from the drums. But John himself, he did various things. There's all sorts of rumours about what John Bonham did. He lined his bass drum with tin foil. I tried that back in the day. It didn't give me a John Bonham sound. It was probably his tuning, the way he tuned the top heads of the drums with the bottom heads to get a certain kind of resonance. And then there was his touch. Legions of drummers after John Bonham made the mistake of thinking that John Bonham just played really, really, really hard. So you got drummers, I don't know, people like Eric Carr from Kiss, who never really got a John Bonham sound because they were just kind of whacking the drums as hard as they could. And even though John Bonham, he was a hard hitter, he wasn't like as hard as you might think. He'd had a bit of jazz training, not a huge amount, but he'd had some lessons, and he knew about swing drummers. He was a big fan of Gene Krupa, so he was able to play with a natural sense of rebound. And if you watch him playing, you can kind of see that. There were two kinds of drummers. There are drummers who come down on the drum, and then there are drummers who kind of spring up from the drum. And John Bonham was one of those. He was playing in the air all the time. He was bringing his sticks up and away off the drums. And when you do that, rather than choking the drum, you're giving it extra resonance and making the sound carry. But I mean, who can imitate it really? So many people have tried. But if you take a song like When the Levee Breaks, nobody else has ever managed to get a 4/4 drum beat to sound like that. I mean, it's just absolutely extraordinary. It's cannons going off at the end of the universe, isn't it, really? And to finish, complete contrast really. Charlie Watts and Keith Richards always said that he was not a fan of Led Zeppelin, and that was mainly because he was not a fan of the John Bonham drum sound, and Charlie had a different sound. It was a far more kind of purist jazz kind of thing, very light touch in a way, although if you see Charlie playing live, he's actually whacking the drums harder than some people make out, you know, but he's definitely got a jazz touch. He plays with a jazz hand style with his left hand, but it's not just his sound, it's the way he puts the grooves together, you know. You've got this thing where the hi-hat is coming in slightly early, the snare drum's coming in slightly late, and it's got this kind of lurching quality to it, and I've only got it here literally one bar, and I know it's Charlie Watts. And you know, I think he was the secret weapon in the Stones' armoury, really. He had such a great sound, has such a great sound. Because he's still up there tapping away now, isn't he? At the grand old age of 102, whatever he is. That's it, that's my selection. So I'd be interested to know if anybody's got any other suggestions. Like I said, I suspect there's hundreds. You know, the sign of a great musician is, do they have their own sound? And I guess you could point to any number of musicians and go, well, yeah, you know, they did their own thing. Think of Steve Howe, think of Hank Marvin, you know, I mean, there's hundreds. But those are the ones that sprung to my mind as being instantly identifiable to me. So I'd be interested to hear if anybody's got any suggestions of anybody else. Right, hope you enjoyed the video. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.